Oregon State didn't just lose to Houston, they lost to themselves. Yes, welcome on into the Pac-12 Daily Podcast. I'm Christian Rao. Let's dig right into it. Oregon State losing to Houston 27-24 in Oregon. Just listen to the post-game presser from Trent Bray and a couple of the players. We're going to dive into it, and this is what I really got from it. They didn't just lose to Houston. They lost to themselves. Too many mistakes from block kicks, busted coverages, turning into a dominating performance, into an overtime collapse. And that was the overall message that we heard from the coaches and the players after the game in Corvallis on Friday night. The overall message was we dominated for 3.5 quarters, basically until about 6 minutes left in the game, and then failed to finish. Bray and the players both agreed that Oregon State controlled the game but collapsed late, and that's absolutely what happened. For the first 3.5 quarters, they were doing everything they needed to do to win this football game, and then disasters hit. They were up 24-10 with just over 6 minutes to go, and they wound up losing this football game 27-24 in overtime. Another overall message I heard from here was accountability and resolve, and that's something that you want to hear when a team is struggling, and this team is struggling bad, but you don't want to hear excuses. You want to hear accountability, the team leaders especially, and we heard from Skyler Thomas, we heard from Trent Walker. Team leaders say the locker room is still united and determined to fix mistakes. You got to love that. You got to love that resolve. Hopefully that means good things moving forward. Hopefully that means less people redshirting and entering the portal. That is a thing that is going to pop up now. As an 0-5 team, you have to just be aware of it moving forward. The mistakes are piling up. That is the story of the season, especially on the special teams side, especially under the special teams coach of Jamie Christian. That is piling up. 2 block field goals in this game against Houston. That could have sealed the deal. Bray came out and said 4 guys could have blocked it in that last one when asked what went wrong in that field goal at the end of the game when time was expiring. He said 4 guys could have blocked it. It wasn't scheme. It was just pride and protection. You just can't have that. And of course, there was a couple other mistakes that happened in this Oregon State game that could have set them up into a better position. There was a dropped late game pass by Reddick's late that killed a potential game-winning drive in regulation. That could have changed everything. We probably wouldn't have went to overtime. Maybe had a better field goal. Maybe it wasn't going to get blocked. Who knows the situation you would have been in if you would have been able to keep that drive moving instead of dropping it and, game changing. Now, for the record, Houston had a couple drops as well, but that one, I think the Reddick's was a dagger because it was so late in the game. One of the other mistakes that Trent Bray brought up was that the coverage burst in the coverage bust, I should say, in the fourth quarter. Defense allowed 180 yards after giving up just 7 in the third. In the fourth quarter, they let up 180 yards, and they finally let one over the top. That's what Trent Bray said, and that's one of the reasons why they started to falter in those final 6 minutes. The offense stalled at halftime, losing rhythm and leaving defense on the field too long. That doesn't help when you're trying to continue that rhythm and stay going like you did that first 3.5 quarters. I'm going to say this. I talked about it in my instant reaction. I'm going to say it again after listening to this post-game presser. The defense was really good until that final 2 drives of Houston, really. 2 of the 3 drives, because they did punt in one of them as well. But heading into the second half, the first 4 drives of the second half, Houston had 4 punts. All of them were 3-and-outs. And between those 4 drives total, they had 5 total yards. The defense did great. Aiden Sullivan, Skyler Thomas, Jacob Schuster, Trey Glasper, all of them had fantastic performances, but they're all overshadowed when you look at how this game ended. And a lot of it is pointed at the special teams part, but the defense still couldn't stop Houston from scoring those touchdowns at the end of the game. The special teams crisis, though, is easily the Achilles heel of this team. Full stop. Absolutely. It's been costly all season. Friday marks now the 3rd game of the year lost due to a special teams failure. 3 games, 3 of your 5 losses are because of special teams blunders. You just can't have that. Bray came out and said we got to protect better. It isn't about scheme. When he was asked about if he's going to make some coaching decisions, he said he's not going to answer at the moment. He said he didn't want to get into the heat of the moment and say something he might regret as well. When another media member asked him about, is he going to have some difficult discussions in the future with athletic director Scott Barnes? So we'll see if there's going to be some coaching changes. Maybe Trent Bray himself might be a coaching change. But either way, something has to give, because these games are just not working for Oregon State. Special teams failures kept Houston alive, flipped momentum in the final 6 minutes of this football game, and eventually gave up what would have been seen as a big win to an up-and-coming Big 12 program like the Houston Cougars, who now move to 4-0 under Willie Fritz in his second season at Houston. Same length that Trent Bray has been at Oregon State. Willie Fritz has been at Houston. Look what he's done with that program, flipping it around. Makes it sting just a little bit more. No firm answer, as I mentioned, if there's going to be some coaching change coming. If they do, we'll have you covered right away, right here on the Pac-12 Daily. Bray talked about these late game collapses, though, in his presser, and he just too many mistakes. He said, quote, "We got to finish. We played 3.5 quarters against a good team and let it slip away." Houston is a very good football team, and you had them on the ropes for a long time, Oregon State, and you let this one slip by. Talking about, there was a question about why Malik Murphy wasn't in on that 3rd and 1. And Coach Bray brought up the fact that Jabari Johnson was in there because Malik's hand was injured. He couldn't grip the ball or be under center. So that's why they did that. Also answered the question of why they went for it on 4th down in that overtime period. And it was because they believed, someone analytics driven. They said on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, it is a good decision to possibly go for it. But then also said that it was on his mind that they just had 2 field goals blocked and they weren't going to rely on their kicking game in overtime. Now, for the record, that play was stalled. They got no points. The drive did not continue. And then eventually Houston kicked a field goal to win the game in overtime. So drop passes, poor clock execution, that doomed late chances. It was a tale of 2 halves, really a tale of 75-25, if you will, maybe even 80-20, because it went down to the wire, unfortunately, for Oregon State, but it never should have been. 24-10, this team was winning with 6 minutes to go. I know I've said that so many times on this segment and the instant reaction, but it's just so crazy to say out loud and then know that it just went away. Houston found a way to win this one. There was a couple of communications and sideline chaos that we heard from Trent Bray, and we heard from Trent Walker as well. There was a helmet audio device issue that did hurt the 2-minute tempo and play calling. That could have been a game changer that would have helped make the momentum even larger heading into halftime. Trent Walker admitted that there was a formation misread as well that caused confusion in a crunch time huddle. So just the small things that add up to being too many mistakes for a Division I FBS, fringe power conference school in Oregon State. Trent Bray said Swagger returned early, forced an opening drive 3 and out, added 2 first half sacks, and then Trey Glasper, that true freshman cornerback, had his first career interception. Again, I am so excited for Trey Glasper. You have to find a way to make sure that if there's major coaching staff changes, some of these younger players are going to be interested in maybe moving on. Trey Glasper has to be one of those guys that you throw the book at and say, take this money, stick around, because you have so much potential here. But that means also there's going to be a lot of other programs looking after him as well. So much offensive inconsistency is what I saw in this one. And then we heard it as well in the presser as well. Malik Murphy, only 58% in completions. I wasn't impressed from him. I really liked what I saw from the running game between Anthony Hankerson and Cornell Hatcher Jr. Hatcher Jr., being a redshirt freshman, did not play last year, stepped up and got 16 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. I want to see a lot more snaps from him. We'll talk about him later on this week. But because of the inconsistencies, the second half drives lacked spark, and they became predictable and unable to sustain drives. And that just hurt this Oregon State offense so much, and then eventually hurt the defense, and wound up this game was tied with just a few seconds to go, and then eventually forced overtime. Skyler Thomas praised the red zone toughness, but said we didn't keep our foot on their throat, the safety for Oregon State. But he did say the locker room is still tight and just has to finish all 4 quarters. He's grateful to play for Oregon State and remains motivated, though. A lot of questions asked about they think this is one of their worst moments in their career at Oregon State. And both of these leaders, I think, had good answers. Trent Walker straight up said it sucks. He felt guilty as a captain. He doesn't want people to remember this, especially him as in his final season, as these moments. But he believed that they're going to be just fine moving forward. He has faith in his guys and the team, and that's good. He did stress improved practice energy after Oregon's loss and confidence with with the opportunities left, saying there were 7 opportunities left heading into this one, so they can find a way to save the season. They're going to have to do a lot to save the season, and I don't know if there's enough to save the coaching career at Oregon State, at least for this tenure, for Trent Bray. A lot of questions coming down the pipeline. I don't know if we're going to get some answers this weekend or Monday morning, or we don't get any at all, and we just keep moving the way we are. Appalachian State is on the docket for next Saturday. That means it's a big road trip. That means probably an early travel day during the week. I'm guessing probably a Wednesday or Thursday travel day, probably more on the Wednesday side because you're going all the way across the country to the Carolinas. That game is at 12:30 Pacific time on Saturday. It'll be on ESPN Plus. So a lot of stuff to answer. We'll find out more here, and we'll, of course, have you covered on the Pac-12 Daily. Before we go, again, emerging bright spots. Let's leave on a positive note. Cornell Hatcher Jr. broke out with those rushing yards, touchdown. He gave the offense a needed spark, and really it was getting to the point to where I was getting bummed when he was getting subbed out for Hankerson. Now, they're both a really nice 1-2 duo, and I hope that we get Hatcher getting more snaps because he was coming in for an injury, being the backup running back in this one. I hope we see more snaps from him moving forward because he's got a lot of potential and really exciting stuff. Aiden Sullivan led the defense with 8 solo tackles, 5 assists, 1 tackle for a loss. It was his career best performance, and it was really exciting stuff to see from him. Want to see more snaps on him. I'm excited to see what his PFF grade says when that comes out earlier tomorrow or on Sunday. And of course, the first 3.5 quarters proved that Oregon State can dominate quality opponents. You know, Trent Bray talked about the first quarter of the Oregon game, where you could make the argument that maybe they kept up with the Ducks. There's also an argument, and I think that you can lean that way, that you really can't. But in this one against Houston, for 80% of the football game, you were the better team. It just, unfortunately, you couldn't get the full 100, and then that's how you wound up losing this football game. But it shows that you can dominate and stay up with quality opponents, something that you have to do if you want to revive this season. Trent Bray said he's disappointed for the players, not myself, that deserve to win. And as I mentioned earlier, he admitted that there could be some difficult conversations ahead. That media question was asked. He said he can't answer this at the moment because he's not sure. He doesn't want to be in the heat of the moment. He didn't say no or yes. I have a feeling there's going to be some difficult conversations ahead. So let me know. Too much mistakes, obviously, for Oregon State, but how are you feeling about this game and the rest of the season moving forward? Can they salvage the season? And if so, what does that final record look like when it's all and done? This team's not going to go 0-12, right? Like, they're going to get some wins on the season. So drop your score prediction, your record prediction below, and then tell me, is this the final game that we have seen as the head coach, Trent Bray, for Oregon State? If it is, let me know in the comment description below. And if not, tell me how much more of a leash are you willing to give him? We'll be back here with another episode soon, right here on the Pac-12 Daily.